Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language. Are we on sheep report yet, or we're still too far away to do the sheep countdown?
Sheep countdown is at T-minus 17 days. So
Okay, we've still got a bit of time.
We're sheep report adjacent, but I wouldn't...
We don't need to play the music.
I generally don't expect any action until a day or two before.
Sure.
At the very outside. So, a little stressful. I am probably planning a work trip to some as yet undisclosed location, hopefully before lambing starts. That has not been confirmed yet, and today is March 3rd.
That makes life a little complicated.
Yeah. Otherwise, I have to convince my coworker that I'm working on a special project with that she really wants to fly to rural Iowa in March and work.
And help with sheep, probably, while she's there.
Yeah, she already said no to that.
Oh.
And, work from my house with our normal level of chaos. Because lambing is about the worst possible time for me to be off the farm. But it's also a really, really important project that is a big honor to be working on. And I can't really say no to it.
And other people don't determine their schedules by things like, gestation cycles and weather, like farmers do, right?
Yeah, and trying to explain that after lambing comes field work, and after field work comes hay, and after hay hopefully comes calves, or calves come somewhere in there, and that from March till
November.
Mid-June? Yeah. March until January is pretty blocked, And living in the upper Midwest, flying anywhere from January to March is pretty iffy. So
yeah, that's true too. Yeah, you can't depend on just about anything.
Mm-hmm. Especially living 3 hours from the airport.
Both the driving the hours to and from the airport. I was going to say, driving to and from the airport, and also assuming that your flight actually leaves the ground.
Yeah. The trying to explain to my boss too that although tickets from Minneapolis to San Francisco are like $250, parking at Minneapolis for a week is $200. And that if we're trying to do this on a tight budget, that might not be the way to go. So, other than that...
all the logistics.
Yeah. Yep. Other than that, not much going on. Just doing the farming thing. We have a bottle calf, and my daughter has adopted him as her special project. He'll be way too old for her to show for 4-H bucket bottle this summer, but she's having a lot of fun. She takes him out of his pen at least once a day, and they literally just run around the yard together.
Mm-hmm.
And so they play tag, basically, both kids and this calf. And the calf is eating really well now and sleeping really well, and my kids are eating well and sleeping well, and everybody is growing well. And
that's a good combination.
Yeah. And they've told me that I don't need to keep reminding them that he is going to be eaten, and he is not a pet. We'll see how that memory of that warning goes when it's time for him to leave.
Right. Well, at least between now and the time he needs to leave, there's going to be a significant size increase. And the playing of tag will probably have to stop at some point because it'll get a whole lot more dangerous as the calf gets bigger.
Yeah. When he's like 1,600 pounds and they're like under 100, that's going to be a whole different matter. Yeah.
They haven't changed much. The playing will probably not last a whole lot longer.
Yeah. I feel like that ties in well to people who look at lambing and say, I don't know how you can eat lambs. They're so cute. And I'm like, we don't eat them when they're cute. They're full-grown sheep. By the time they go to processing, they're sheep, and they're not cute, and they're not real bright,
And they're still delicious.
and they're still delicious. If they didn't want us to eat them, they shouldn't taste so good. Just saying. I need to plug one huge improvement in my life though. I got a thermocup. There's a couple different brands. It's a rechargeable coffee cup that keeps your coffee at a predetermined temperature, and you can pick that temperature because I don't like my coffee real hot.
But you also don't like it cold and forgotten on the counter. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no. So this is amazing. Of course, my coffee consumption is way up, so I think that my productivity will be up. Or ADHD, I'll just be sleeping.
We should see if they want to sponsor a podcast, because a programmable coffee cup seems like the kind of thing that both parents and farmers would enjoy.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, how are you, Arlene?
That is a hard question to answer these days. But we'll say that, what's the phrase? I'm surviving, maybe not thriving, but I am here, and I'm, gonna do some things today. I don't know exactly what it's gonna be, but some of it's gonna hopefully be productive and maybe get some things off my ever-growing to-do list. Being a sandwich is hard. Having people on both sides of your life that need you. Already got a call this morning from one of the schools, so that is going to require some follow-up. It was a high school call, so that means when teachers call from the high school, things have gotten to a certain level of seriousness, and it's not someone's in trouble necessarily, but someone is struggling more in academics than they would have led me to believe. So we're going to have to do some follow-up on that and figure out where balls are being dropped on that side of things. I mostly don't know, but things are still happening. Cows are still getting milked. On the farm, I would say for the most part, things are going pretty well. There were some frozen water bowls this morning. It's still super cold, and the curtains on the one side of the barn got frozen down for a little bit, but not to the extent that, we had any pipes bursting or anything. It was just I had to wear my coat for milking for a little while because things had gotten a bit chilly. But yeah, farm stuff's going okay. So that's one area of life that's good.
I feel like the real problem with being a sandwich is that when you're dealing with adults from like their mid 20s to their mid, whenever things start falling apart, whatever age that is, because for some folks that's a lot sooner than it is for others, you can generally say, figure your own shit out for a couple days. And hopefully they are at least a little bit capable of figuring their own shit out for a couple days. But when you're dealing with kids and older folks or younger folks who need more help and livestock, telling them to figure their own shit out doesn't really, I mean, you can tell them, but it's not gonna do a whole lot.
Nobody is listening, apparently.
Yeah. And I know it's so frustrating too, and I'm trying not to tell you to make sure that you take care of yourself because, like, A, you know that.
It is good advice. I've told someone else the very same thing very recently.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, like, who's going to take care of all the other shit?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah. But I hadn't really considered the whole call from the high school thing because when your kid's, a baby and they're at daycare, they call you if they sneeze. And by elementary school, it's like, oh, there was blood. Maybe we should call. And by high school, it's like,
Yeah, that's right. There was an injury from the neck up. We have to call in case it was a concussion. Yeah.
by high school, it's like, oh, your kid cut their arm off. Maybe we should call. Or whatever the academic equivalent of cutting your arm off is.
Yeah, that's right. We're not quite at cut the arm off academically, but it's still early in the semester, thankfully. But yeah, we're getting into problem territory. And I guess we knew that was a potential risk when we took a few days off to go on a family trip. But sometimes that feels like it's worth it. But yeah, for the more chill teenagers who think that you just don't need to stress about anything, sometimes they just need a little bit of stress. And sometimes as parents we need to add the element of stress to them to be like, this is actually important, so we're gonna stress about this for a little while, and maybe that will actually cause you to get some of the work done. So anyway, we'll figure it out.
My kids experienced some natural consequences this weekend, and it's hard too to let them face the consequences of their actions. But also, learning the consequences of their actions when they're younger hopefully mediates some of the harshness of learning the consequences of their actions when they're older.
We can always hope.
We can yeah. Children.
Yes. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest for this week and let them take over the rest of the show.
All right.
Are you a farmer or butcher ready to master direct-to-consumer marketing and meet success?
The team at ChopLocal is standing by ready to help. Sell your meat on the ChopLocal marketplace. Check out all the free meat marketing educational resources at ChopLocal University. Hire the team to help you out or tune into their new podcast called Meat Success.
And remember, there's more than one recipe for meat success. Let us help you fine-tune yours today at choplocaluniversity.com. Today, we are happy to be talking to Julia Wells, who's joining us from Oklahoma. So, Julia, we always start our interviews with the exact same question, and this is your way to introduce yourself to our listeners. So we always ask, what are you growing? So for our farmers, that's usually crops and livestock, but can also be kids and businesses and all kinds of other stuff. So, Julia, tell us, what are you growing?
Well, all sorts of things. We started a new business a couple months ago, so that, and we raise sheep, cattle, hogs, and poultry. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, and human children. I've got 2 of those, and some ducks. And so that's what we've got going on right now.
Okay, so let's start with the first thing you said. Tell us about the business. So what kind of business are you growing?
My husband and I, in August, I think, launched a small alternative, I want to say, organic feed store. We're not like a feed store in like the common sense where we have a storefront, but we've created this kind of model where we do monthly drops for our customers where they pre-order and then they meet us at our storage facility and pick up their feed for the month. We kind of came up with this idea because we had been traveling, literally driving the country, trying to find certified organic feed that met our incredibly high standards. And we found that in our friends at Peterson's. So we started this little feed store, and we've done it in a manner to keep costs low as far as like not having to have a storefront, only really operating like 4 days a week or 4 days a month. So it doesn't take time away from all of our other responsibilities, me homeschooling the kids, my husband's town job. And so far it's worked really well. We're able to provide an affordable product to our customers without like a giant markup.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because if you've done all the legwork to find products for yourself to be able to help out other farmers is a really neat way of doing things.
Well, there was just a huge need for it. And like we wanted, like our friends wanted it and we wanted to help our friends. And then it just kind of grew from there.
So do you guys mill feed or are you a dealer for somebody else?
We resell feed.
Y'all better watch out because the company my husband works for started with roughly what you're doing, and I think now they have 3 or 4 storefronts in the space of like 2 years. So you've been warned. I think his wife had some words about how many people were showing up in their yard. Because I think in a couple of years it went from, well, yeah, we're open 1 Saturday a month. I can be the middleman for some feed delivery. I'll just put it on my pallet to, 1 weekend a month to a couple weekends a month to 4 storefronts. So.
Yeah, we don't do it out of our home. We do it out of a lease. So that's one thing that we're like, we don't want people just showing up at our house to pick stuff up. So we've found like a middle ground that's near to the house, and that has been working out so far. But I do see us growing, and I'm like, are we going to end up with a storefront? I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's right. What the future holds. So being farmers, we're always curious about breeds of all of the types of things. So can you talk to us and our listeners about some of the types of animals that you're raising?
Yes. So we have Dexter, our personal herd that we have is Dexter cattle, and we've been raising them for about 5 years. I love them. They've got a little bit of a sassy personality. They work really good in our context as far as they're hardy, easy calvers. They just work really well for us. And I was not involved in agriculture, animal or otherwise, so they were a great starter cow for me to get used to, like, an 800-pound critter like walking around my house. Like, Dexters are a good place to start. I think I would have been like terrified had we had like a Holstein or like a giant Angus is what we started with. But so we've got Dexters, we have St. Croix hair sheep, and we've got about 25 of them, and we're in the middle of lambing right now. And then my son raises ducks for 4-H, and he's got some Indian runner ducks. And what are the other ones? I forget what the other ones are, but he shows them, and he did really well last year with them. And so that's exciting. And we normally have pigs, some sort of Berkshire cross, but we don't have any right now. And then we have one quail. That's my son's like project. Her partner passed away, so we just have one quail. And then we have a handful of cats and some dogs. And
Yeah, that is a lot of different things. So I know that size is always tricky to talk about, but how much kind of land base or like production wise, like how are you distributing all of these animals on the property that you have?
So right now everything's mostly on our home place. We do lease stuff occasionally. We lease 40 acres north of us. That's where we'll probably have some chickens up there and hogs. But yeah, and we've had various leases, or we'll have friends let us stick critters someplace for a little bit. But our home base is about 18 acres, like our home place.
And are you marketing your own meat, or what is the farm's kind of production, cycle in terms of what you're doing with the animals?
Direct to consumer mostly, and we're into like small, like local type markets. Like one's in Oklahoma City called Flora Bodega, and that is like it reminds me of like the old school health food stores from like the 70s. It's great. The folks that run it are amazing. And so we've got some meat in there. And then in one of the neighboring towns, we have Arcadia Farmers Market, where we have a cooler there. And we stock that full of our meat. And that we've been there since about when they opened. So we've been there 3 or 4 years. And then we do direct to consumer from our website and like word of mouth. And that's been good that's worked out really well. I do love being in the markets because it's just like kind of set it and forget it. Because I don't think I have the personality for a farmer's market every Saturday.
So that market is run by someone, like the local farmer's market is one that you don't actually have to set up a booth and sell on a set date. Yeah.
Yeah, it's both of them are 7-day-a-week farmer's market. So it's more of like kind of trying to bring back the old school local stores / health food store, especially Flora Bodega has like a very much like old school health food store. You can get a little bit of everything. It's right in the heart of like a cute hip neighborhood in Oklahoma City. They have lots of people that just come there every day to get something for dinner. And Arcadia Farmers Market is kind of the same way. They just have, it's convenient for people to stop at on the way home from work and grab milk or, a pre-made meal for dinner or some meat for the week.
I see here that you used to be vegan. And Arlene, I don't know that we've ever talked about it on the show. I was vegetarian for a number of years, and I am also a meat producer. What's your ag background, and how did you go from being, vegan is obviously one step further than high school vegetarian. So how did you end up with cattle? Oh, reel this back. We never talked about how many kids you have.
I got 2. I've got 2. I got 2 little boys.
Okay. We'll circle back to that.
All right. We'll get to the kids in a little bit, but yeah, that's right.
They're fine. So I kind of became a selectitarian around age 6 in first grade in my public school. I was shown some really graphic videos of like animals being handled really roughly. Like, let's talk like 1995 PETA video was shown to me by a teacher. And I am a very sensitive soul who loves critters. And that scarred me for life. My parents were like, and my dad like he hates that I say this probably, but his nickname is like Three Meat Joe. Like he has like steak with sausage with a chicken breast, and he's been this way my entire life. Not so much now, but like my parents were like, what are we going to feed this kid? And I ate like mostly macaroni and cheese and cheese-based things for a long time. And then around like high school, middle school, I just cut out dairy. I was never like a milk drinker, so I cut out dairy almost completely, most of high school, college, until I met my husband and I started cooking him like vegetarian and vegan stuff. And he's like, listen, I made him this, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the fake meat called Satan. I made him that. And my husband is best described as like a corn-fed Oklahoman, and he like God-fearing, and he's like, you made me Satan? And I was like, no, it's called like Satan. And he's like, no, I'm not eating this. He's like, you can like learn how to cook meat, or like we're not going to go any further. So like the next day I made him bacon wrapped meatloaf, and I like slowly, as we were dating and then eventually got married, like I became like, I started trying new things, and like I got really into eggs, because like I thought I had like misinformation about what eggs actually were, and I only thought like the only way to eat eggs was like scrambled hard, like dry pieces of styrofoam. And then like I found about like eggs Benedict and like hollandaise sauce and like medium poached eggs, and I was like, the lights came on, and like so I started eating meat and stuff around that time period. And you know, I lived in Maryland, so I was eating a lot of seafood. I started eating seafood, and then it was just full tilt boogie.
So then, did either of you have a background in agriculture, or when did you start going into deciding to raise your own animals?
My husband had a background in agriculture. He did FFA and stuff. So the deal was like, I was like, oh, we can have, he's like, well, when we moved to Oklahoma after his military service, he's like, we can have chickens because the town we live in is a bird sanctuary. So you can have chickens in your backyard, which was not the case, but we had illegal chickens in the backyard. And that was like the gateway for me. We had our first son while my husband was deployed. So I had, and I guess this will loop back into the kids. So I had my first son while my husband was deployed, and I was living with my mom and stepdad in New Jersey. And then our family reunited, moved to North Carolina for like a couple months, then moved to Oklahoma. And so when we got to Oklahoma, I was like, all right, we got some backyard chickens. And then a couple years later, we found out we were expecting our second, and we're like, okay, we got to get out of town. Like, we need more space. We're living in a small house. And so we bought our house that we're in now, and like bought the farm. And we really didn't get started on any sort of scale. Like, we had chickens and stuff until probably like 2018. We started with a partner. We started raising broilers, and then just kept adding stuff. We tried goats. We're not goat people. We're not goat people. And then we got our cattle, I think, in 2019, 2020, and then the sheep in 2022. And we had been doing hogs since like 2018, 2019 at our partner's place.
So you talked a little bit already about the decision to start into the feed business. For you, was there kind of like a moment where it's like, we need to expand this beyond ourselves? Were you kind of picking up other people's feed while you were getting your own, or kind of what was the real push to, yeah?
We had like our church group friends, and like a couple of them are like, oh, could you throw a couple bags? And then we're like, okay, we need to turn this into a business model, I think. And like our like feed company that we distribute for is like great people, and I don't think we would have done it with anybody else, but we feel really supported by them. So we decided, like, let's give this a go and see how it goes. And it just kind of was like an idea, and then it was in existence, and we had an LLC, and we're like, I built a website, and we're rolling, and we've just been like very slowly and steadily growing and adding new customers, and like now we have customers that were like, I don't know who this is, but great, but they ordered feed, cool.
Yeah, when it starts to go beyond the names that you recognize, then it probably feels like it's going into real business territory, right?
Yeah. So we just saw a really big need for it, especially in our area. And a lot of people want organic feed, and not a lot of people are like willing to like. We tried like for years. We tried talking to local feed mills to see if they'd do like an organic ration, and like nobody was interested. And we just traveled like the surrounding states to Oklahoma buying feed, and finding feed that wasn't up to our standards or didn't test well. And then we just found Peterson's, and we had been buying for them for a little over a year before we decided to, try this model out, and it's working so far. I'm happy. I'm like glad we stuck our neck out to do it, and I love helping people because it's, I know I'm not the only one that like wants to feed this way or feels like it's important, and so just finding other people to connect with and talk through stuff with and share information, it's just nice. I mean, everybody's just lovely.
That sounds really good. Now, are you starting to already get requests to carry other things? Like while we're here, could we also pick up, X, Y, or Z? Or are you trying to stick to your guns of just feed for now?
A little bit. I mean, we're starting to soft launch, like carrying some hog feeders that we feel really passionate about, that are really good and high quality. Because I don't know if either one of you have ever raised pigs before. Like, they just want to destroy everything. And so we found like a hog feeder that like, we're like, I think this is it. And it's really well constructed. So we're like carrying that. We carry organic apple cider vinegar, like a couple things like that we just feel like are really good complements to what we already have. And then we do carry to order seed as well, as the other big factor of it is why it's Walton feed and seed. But that's not like my area of expertise. I'm the hands-on customer lady and the email phone call person. My husband really got the seed stuff nailed down, and so we'll do like a 2 or 3 time a year seed, organic or non-GMO seed order for our customers that need to plant pasture or crops.
I know, both as a farmer and as someone who is married to somebody in the feed and ag supply sphere of things, it does really help if you're selling stuff that you use on your pasture. And I know, like, my husband installed one of the waterers that he sells, and then I think installed another one. But he has sold so many more of them because he can tell people how it's worked on our farm, and it does make a big difference. But as the wife of an employee, am I supposed to talk to the owner or the owner's wife? I mean, I guess she's co-owner. Who do I talk to about other stuff that they should be carrying? Because my husband seems to think I'm just being a pain in the ass.
He's the sales guy. He should be drumming up business for them.
Well, that's what I thought. You know my husband. You call him, Arlene.
I don't know, whoever does the ordering. I talk to somebody. I mean, like, there's things that like we're not sure if they exactly fit with us, and only like 1 or 2 people have asked about. And like, the thing with us is we're like small potatoes. With everything, we're small potatoes. And like big companies are like, well, I want to bring a truckload. And I was like, I don't have room for a truckload. I can take a pallet. And you'd like this much.
Yeah. Could I have a couple pallets maybe? Yeah, that's right. What can fit in my storage space?
Yeah. And so that's a lot of like what we run into. And it's just like a whole industry that we're just kind of finding out about. And like, we're not doing things the way everybody else does. And I think like we don't carry inventory, which is bad, because like if you run out of hog food, you run out of hog food. Like sometimes I have extra, but generally like we try really hard to clear out our storage space because this is just the way we've figured out to keep our costs down low. If we have a bunch of waste, then like that's how we have to like pass that on to the customer, and that's not like what our model is.
Yeah, so your farmers have to be really on top of their own inventory, so because they can't, yeah, you're not going to have it sitting around necessarily.
I think too, for folks who don't deal with feed or who aren't, grinding their own bulk feed or whatever, um, it's easy to forget that things happen as well. Like feed can go rancid, feed can get mice or bugs or whatever in it. Like it's not the same as like having a stack of pallets sitting in your warehouse as inventory. Like it is a food product, and especially organic feeds that don't have near the stuff in them to, all the extra crap.
Extend their shelf life.
We really recommend like don't order more than like 45 days worth of food, and that 45 like is kind of I think the magic number for multiple reasons, because like less incidence of pests. Once the feed is ground, you start getting oxidization, things start going down, and so 45 days is kind of like the magic science number. But also like if you buy 45 days worth of food, if you're not going to run out on day 30. And so that's how I suggest people. And there's all sorts of mathematical equations that you can like look up to figure out how much your chicken needs a day. And we try and help people with that to the best of our abilities, but also know I'm like not an animal nutritionist. I went to art school. Like I'm no use. Like I can tell you like what I do and how I raise my animals, but like research and, we can put you in touch with an animal nutritionist and, give you the best information we have.
Everyone has an origin story, but some stories hit you in the heart. And the story behind one of our past guests is totally one of those. It all started with a young kid named Kawani.
Yeah, Sean, the chicken guy short of Blooming Health Farms, didn't know he'd be a chicken farmer or that he'd be teaching you how to turn your flock into a business. It began with Kawani, a kid stuck in the court system who needed a second chance. He joined Sean at Blooming Health Farms to turn his life around.
One day, Sean showed Kawani how to sell fresh eggs at a local market. As Kawani started selling those eggs, Sean saw the real power in what he was doing. It wasn't just about the eggs. He was building skills and getting respect from the community. That one small act of selling eggs transformed his life.
And that's how Blooming Health Farms was born. Sean saw that selling eggs could be more than food. It could be a way to help others learn business skills and build their own futures. And now, through their online community called Pimp Your Flock, Blooming Health Farms is taking this mission even further.
Pimp Your Flock is a community for people who want to turn their passion for chickens into profits. You'll learn how to turn your flock into a real income source, and when you join, you're supporting Blooming Health Farms so they can help more kids like Kawani build a better future.
So if you're looking for a way to turn your flock into a business and be part of something bigger, join Pimp Your Flock at pimpyourflock.com. Not only will you learn the skills to make your egg business grow, but you'll also be part of a community that's changing lives.
Head over to pimpyourflock.com today and let's make an impact together, one egg at a time.
All right, so this kind of cracks me up because I work in software, so I see a lot of these, like one of the acronyms that gets thrown around my work a lot is EPD, and every time I see it, I think estimated progeny difference. I'm still not sure what it actually means in software, presumably not progeny difference.
I don't think that's what it means, but that's what I think too.
So when we're talking AI, and not the kind that I generally talk about at work, although I do also often think of this kind, what got you started doing AI for yourself and then expanding that into a business? And I mean artificial insemination, not computers.
We started trying to breed one of our sows. I think it was Miss Peggy was her name. That's how I learned. And hogs are totally different than cows because they're obviously different animals, and like the way the semen is shipped and stuff is totally completely different than cattle. But I kind of was like, I like the idea of like being involved with like the creation of like new critters, and like I had like a brief midlife crisis where I was like, should I go back to school to become a vet? And I was like, absolutely not. You're in your mid 30s. That's terrible. I like talked to like a couple of my good friends who like had advanced medical degrees in like human, and they're like, no. They're like, don't do that. Do this instead. And so that's kind of like, I really love cattle. I really like working with cattle. I'm never gonna have like a ton of cows on our home place, and I really saw a need for like a lot of like the smaller breeds, like Dexter's. A lot of people have like onesie twosie milk cows, and like the big genetics companies aren't gonna come for like one cow. So I kind of found that as my niche, and breeding my own cattle. And we had our bull collected, so I had his semen in my tank to sell to clients as well. And yeah, it just felt like, and it was also something that like I didn't have to be away from my kids because I homeschool them. So I was just like generally like, grab your books, we're going over to Susie's house and we gotta breed the milk cow. And it worked pretty well. I took a little break over the fall from breeding, but I'm back in action on that. And yeah, I like it. I like the people I get to meet. I like cows. I mean,
Yeah, it's a field trip for the kids.
yeah, and then like the other like plus is generally like we go to like little small towns in Oklahoma, and we find out like whatever the local like dairy shack like burger joint is, and like we go there and get a milkshake and french fries and a hamburger and then go home. So like they're in it for that.
Yeah, lunch is taken care of.
Yeah, but it's been fun. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So what's the furthest you have gone to breed a cow?
East of Tulsa. I've gone east of Tulsa. I had a couple people that wanted me to come to Arkansas, but they never got, like, I was like, if you get a couple people, I can split the travel fee. But yeah, Tulsa probably. But
So how many miles would that be for you?
125. That's about my max.
That'd be, yeah. Yeah, and you're charging mileage because obviously that's an expensive trip there and back for you.
So, do you think do your kids know more about the human parts of the birds and the bees since they're watching you AI, or are you just leaving off on that? Because I mean,
I think they know more than the average. I think most kids, farm kids, know more than like their average peer. And like, I don't know, like my son did this the other day. We were talking about AI, and he goes, AI or AI, and pointed to his butt, meaning me palpating a cow and breeding.
Which one? Let's be clear.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that kids now are growing up with artificial intelligence is something they talk about too.
In his co-op, it's a really big thing of like the kids trying to using AI to write essays, and like I can't even imagine. I mean, we had to have like run our essays in college and sometimes high school through like a plagiarism checker, but like now I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
My kids probably know more than the average bear. I mean, they've seen their bulls go to the genetics facility, and like from afar we watched them get collected and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'm messing them up or they're just like really well informed.
We'll go with well informed. I mean, it's all life experiences, right? So we always, well, not always, but usually end up asking our guests when we're talking about kids about kind of that time where you first became a parent. And you already mentioned that at that time you were a military family. So when you reflect on the time when you first became a mother, what were those early days and weeks like for you?
Woof. Like even with my second, when my husband was there, I just like, that is just like a rough transition period for me. Like expelling a human from your body, figuring out how to feed it, figuring out what to do with two of them. And I like, that's not my peak parenting. Like that was just like really, that is not where I excel as a parent. And it's just like, I think back about stuff, like my friend told me a story and I didn't even remember it because I was like in such a fog at that point in time. And I didn't have kids that were sleepers. And now like they're 9 and 12 and they sleep, I realize like how sleep deprived I was during that time period, and like how badly I am this girl needs solid 8 hours of sleep for me to be like a vaguely functioning human being. And like I was getting like broken 3 hours for 4 years, and I think that's enough to put anybody in the nut hut. And I just wasn't good for me to not sleep.
Julia, I keep trying to remind new parents and mothers especially that sleep deprivation is considered torture under the Geneva Convention. Like, there is a reason it is considered torture, because people think like, and I remember even being one of them like, oh, I'll be tired. But like, it fucks with your brain. Your brain does not work. It's not just like, oh, I'm a little sleepy today.
And it's like,
Like,
is it depression or am I sleep deprived? And I realized like once I started sleeping through the night and getting like 8 hours of sleep, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, and my kids they just weren't good sleepers. I let them in the bed. I nursed them whenever they wanted to nurse. And like, there was no sleep training these children. And I kind of like, especially when I have friends that are having new babies, like I try and be who I needed at that time period. And like, I mean, even for one of my AI clients, she had not even a baby, not like a newborn, but a little baby. And I was going to Costco before. I was like, hey, do you need it? Like, I try and be like, hey, do you need anything? She's like, from Costco. And she's like, actually, I need oats and we're out of toilet paper. And I was like, I can do that. I try and be that person that I needed. Like, we recently had to travel a lot over the holidays, and like, I sought out like moms that were traveling by themselves because I had people do that to me and be like, hey, can I get you a coffee? Like, do you need to pee without a child step to you? And like, you're kind of like, am I handing out my baby? I never did, but like, people like sometimes have to pee and like don't have anybody to hold their baby because they couldn't bring a stroller through TSA, or like do need a coffee and they're stuck under a sleeping baby. I had one time like a husband and wife coming back from vacation helped me and the two boys who fell asleep on the plane, like helped me and my 6 bags and my stroller, like helped me off the plane, handed the stuff to my husband. And like, I'm always grateful, and I just try and be that person for new moms and try and not like ask like stupid questions like, when are you going to have another baby, or like, is the baby sleeping through the night? I try and be like, how are you doing? Do you need, and also like never not show up without food. That was like the other, like, I'll bring you like trash bags, take out the trash, just like stupid little things that like seem insurmountable when you're stuck with like not even a little baby, just a toddler. Like, living rurally, I have to walk my trash down the driveway, and like sometimes that's like seems insurmountable.
I know, Julia, when our daughter was about 8 months old, we took her to a tractor show, and my husband and I were in a restaurant with her trying to eat dinner, and it'd been a long day. And she wasn't being bad. I mean, an 8-month-old baby cannot be bad because they're not doing it on purpose, but she was just being a pain in the ass. Let's just be honest about it. And this woman got up from another table across the room, and she was probably mid 60s, early 70s. She came over and she goes, "That baby needs a grandma," and just reached her arms out, and I just gave my kid to her. I'm like, at this point, I'm so hungry, I'm so tired. I don't care if you try to kidnap her. Like, you're gonna bring her back. She's being a pain in the ass. And that was 8 years ago. And we still talk about this woman all the time. And yeah, do the things for these parents. You can find the broom in your friend's house. You can wash dishes. And the other thing I really try to do is when we go on vacation somewhere or anywhere, to offer to take pictures for people, because the mom is never in the picture. And people really appreciate it. I have never had somebody say no. And I often wish that somebody would offer to do it for us, because it would be nice to have pictures that I didn't take of myself.
I try really hard to do that. And I've been like, especially like I've been in a lot of like situations where like I just try and be like, I have like a couple bad things that like really stuck out. Like we were out because we live rurally. So when we run out of diapers, like we have to drive 45 minutes to get diapers and wipes. And we were on the way to a doctor's appointment or from it with a newborn. And I was literally had a package of wipes and diapers. And we were going to check out, and this woman like cuts me off and has a full cart. And I literally just had diapers and wipes, like a little bit. And I was like, hey, ma'am, like my son's in a dirty diaper. I really need to change him. And she's like, well, I'm late for this, and just went off of it. And my, at the time, 4-year-old's like, my mommy's really tired. And she's like, I'm tired too. And just laid into me. And I just like kind of like fell apart. Like, cause I was like, literally, I just needed diapers and wipes. And like, I have the palest children on planet Earth. And like, they're not the type of kids that you can let hang out in a dirty diaper, because like poop would like sit on their skin for like 5 seconds, and they'd have like this blistering diaper rash, because welcome to the Pasty Wells family. Like, we have sensitive skin.
Yeah. And you're probably also thinking, like, once I get through this cash, I also have to go now into a bathroom with a young child and a baby and get the diaper.
With the 4-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, with a 4-year-old and a baby, and then still get to a doctor's appointment, right? Like, there's all the things that are still running through your head.
Yeah. And feed this baby that's probably hungry, because like he was like newborn. And I like, my kids don't know the bounds of like, just like the logistics. It gives me like sweats thinking of like driving 45 minutes to town, and like how many times I would have to stop and pull over on the side of the road, because like I had children that like thought the car seat was actually on fire every time I put them in it.
I remember sometimes speeding, with a screaming baby in a car seat and thinking, I hope that when I get pulled over, because I know I'm driving fast, that whichever police officer pulls me over has children, because they will understand how your body feels when you have a screaming child in a car seat, because there's just something about that. Like, it's another form of torture.
And there's like nothing I can do. Like, I can only stop and pull over so many times and try and feed this baby so many times before I just drive with a screaming kid.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing we don't talk about living rurally, is that like the mental gymnastics and math of like, how many stops can I reasonably make between here and home? Where can I stop? Where can I safely stop? Where can I stop in a place that is in any way beneficial to me? Where can I pee, especially if you're pregnant with the second one, or whatever. Like, there are people in the world, I've heard, that can just like go to the grocery store and then in 5 minutes they're home. I don't know any of these people, but like,
once I found a grocery delivery place, we recently got like Kroger delivery out to us, and they go like further away than me. Like, it is worth I spend more than $6.95 to drive my truck to town to get groceries. I will gladly pay that delivery fee. But I didn't have that like 9 years ago when I had a newborn. It was schlepping to town with a baby and a toddler, and having great plans of making 5 stops, and like I made 2 and we're going to call it good enough.
Yeah, that's right. Those other things weren't important.
Nope, didn't need them.
I feel like, too, somehow the universe always makes sure that old lady who noticed that your baby doesn't have a hat in the 20 feet between your car and the door of Walmart, and now she's going to take 3 times longer than it would have taken you to just walk into the damn door to tell you that your child is going to die of frostbite because it's 50 degrees out and your baby's not wearing a hat.
My mother-in-law is like a very special lady. She made these little clips to go on the kids' like carriers, their little pouches, or the baby buckets, and it said, "Do not touch my mommy bites." So people would not touch my kids, and it went so far as like because I used to when they were younger, and it was a lot cheaper to fly across the country and visit my family back east. I'd put them on the kids when we were traveling, and But yeah, like I like especially in the South, like every old lady wants to like your baby, and I'm just like, don't touch, no. And I'm not a germaphobe by any means, but like I just
Yeah, but in an airport, yeah, I don't know when you last washed your hands or where you came from.
That makes me feel better too, Julia, because I was not a germaphobe until I had kids. I am manure, like animal germs, no problem. Humans are disgusting. Humans are so gross.
like I have to put my hand in a cow butt for my job, and like that's less gross to me than like I don't know an airport bathroom or like seeing people take their shoes off on an airplane or just like my kids when they like run their hand down a wall in like a public restroom. I'm just like, okay, the neurovirus, rhinovirus, bubonic plague, you've got it.
Yeah. Everybody's got it. Yeah. The black death is coming for us.
Our daughter got her very first cold licking the the handlebar of a Walmart shopping cart. Like I took her to the doctor for like her 6 month checkup or whatever, and the doctor's like, "Do you know where she got this cold?" And I was like, "Yep, sure do." Like I've seen her lick gates in the barn and been like, meh. But I mean, 8 years later, the feeling of seeing her lick that shopping cart before I could stop her was just like, oh, yuck. Okay, well, moving. Gross. So, what do things like childcare, off farm work, family routines, whatever look like for your husband, for your family? And is your husband still in the military or is he retired now?
No, he's been out for a while. I think the biggest thing that's been helpful is like Grandma Fridays, because we really don't have childcare. The logistics of getting like a babysitter out here, especially when the kids were little, was like I was gonna have to like pay for gas for them to come out here. So probably since my for the past 9 years, almost every Friday my kids go to their grandma's house, and that's like my therapy day. Go to Costco without children day. They go hang out there for a couple hours. I run around. My in-laws live in town. I run around town and scoop the kids up. That's like the biggest thing. And then one of like our good family, like one of my good friends, she moved out this way about 3 years ago, and she has 7 kids. Three of the younger boys are all within my boys like age range, and so we'll swap kids quite a bit. And she has a big family, and she'll probably never hear this because she doesn't listen to podcasts, but like when I first met her when Blue was little, and I like was like, man, it's so cool that you and your sisters help each other out, because like I'm an only child and I don't have anybody to do that here. And she's like, well, I'm your sister now. And she is really like, if like I were to have to go to the ER in the middle of the night, like she would come pick up my kids. Like she it's like such. I asked my kid who his favorite, my youngest, who his favorite mom goes, and he goes, Ashley. I go, he's like, you're second place. And I was like, I'll take, I mean, like, that's like been a really big gift, is to have like some really good lady friends that are just there to like scoop me up and help with the kids, because just thinking about when the boys were like little and how alone I felt, like I wouldn't be able to do like half the stuff I do now, like as far as like having a farm business and stuff like that, without like my husband and his family and like all of like our friends that we now have. But like when we first moved out here, we were like loners and didn't have like a big support system. And I see women doing what I'm doing now with little kids, and I'm like, I have no idea how you're doing that. But like, congratulations. And if you need a break, that's okay too.
What went into the decision for you guys to start homeschooling your kids and to go with homeschooling?
I couldn't see my kids going into the Oklahoma public school system. I had like a light background in education, and I like looked at my 4.5-year-old and I was like, I can't send you to school. Like I can't send you to school. I I need more time with you. And it kind of like, our decision has never been like hard and fast. like if the kids wanted to go to public school, they could, but I don't think you could pay them to go to public school because they enjoy like their freedom and like they have a lot more responsibility, but also freedom than those kids their age. Like, you know, they enjoy it. They like kind of being able to craft their own days and, you know, dive into special interests and like hang out with friends throughout the day and eating when they want to.
I was going to say, if you're bribing them with milkshakes to go on road trips with you in the middle of the day, I mean, 10-10, I would skip out of pretty much anything to go for a drive and get a milkshake.
Yeah. They both do go to like a co-op type situation 1 day a week, and we're probably going to do 2 days a week next year. And that's like my day. That's like the other childcare I guess we have, but we didn't start that until like about 2 years ago. Like a full-on drop-off co-op, but I like that because it helps me with like the homeschooling stuff, and my son really loves it, like the social aspect of it, and everybody gets like, I wanted them to be able to like be educated by somebody else other than me, and so they do that. He likes, I think he likes it better, but he also likes the idea of like being home and having his own stuff. And
it's nice to be able to have that combination, right? Where there's both the group learning and able to specialize in what they're interested in.
Well, I knew once we hit middle school, mom's math like caps out about 6th, 7th grade level math, and like once he's like talking about integers and geometry, I was like, you're gonna have to talk to your dad or your grandfather or your math tutor about that because that is over my head.
Yeah, that's beyond my pay grade now. So I think this is kind of related to that, to the homeschooling part. But what's your favorite thing about raising kids on a farm?
How hilarious they are about like stuff, like the jokes they make about things that most people think are like inappropriate, like sending naughty cows to the butcher, stuff like that. And they're just so capable and independent, like in comparison a lot of times to like kids that grow up in town. Like, I don't know, one of my kids, my youngest, has been like making food for himself since he was like 5. Like, they just like become resourceful. And like my 12-year-old, he can drive a skid steer and I can't. Like, they just have opportunities to do things like that most people would be like, danger, but they're like, you know, they have been responsible for feeding and caring for things since they're like 7 years old, and they know like if something doesn't eat, it will die. And I think there's like a heavy weight of responsibility in that creates these like really cool people that like have a really high value of like the importance of caring for things, not just critters, but also like equipment and like don't touch the PTO, it'll take your arm off type stuff. Don't walk under the forks.
Yeah, there's some serious consequences for actions both in positive and negative ways, right?
So what's your biggest parenting struggle these days?
I guess like shuffling kids around and like being in these like this 9-12-year-olds, like we're not quite teenagers, we're not quite little kids, and they're definitely not babies, but they're really like figuring out who they are and what they enjoy. And a lot of that comes with like activities and stuff, and like shuffling kids around and like figuring out how to get somebody at the same place at the same time as somebody else. A lot of it's that, and just the cruel joke of moms going through perimenopause while their kids are going through puberty is just like not fair.
Yes, I hear you on that one.
That's the hardest part, but they're so cool. Like, I was like, hey, you're like, I like hanging out with you 95% of the time.
That's a pretty nice thing to be able to say about your kids, right? That you enjoy hanging out with them.
I had to go away and go back east for a little bit for some stuff, and like I didn't have my kids with me for 7 days, which is the longest I've been away from my kids in 13 years. And I was just like, it was lovely, but I also was like, I deeply miss like having my kids around me. Like I miss like their silly jokes and just like they both have excellent senses of humor, which hopefully isn't a reflection of like poor parenting or trauma, and they're just like naturally funny because me and my husband are like, that's like a core of like our family is just like being able to laugh, like just being funny people. But yeah,
I go with it's a sign of intelligence, right? Like I find my teenage boys quite hilarious, but we'll go with it. If, like you have to be smart enough to make the joke, right? So yeah, it just means that we've got some smart kids.
I like to think that it means that they feel secure in their environment because it means that they feel okay about things. Which is possible that all three of us are completely delusional and our kids are just real smart asses.
Yeah, they might be
Eh,
that too. What is a piece of parenting advice that either you've gotten from someone or that you've learned along the way that you would want to share with other farm parents? It doesn't have to be farm related, but
I mean, invest in washable stuff. I don't know, like invest in washable stuff. Urine sterile. That was like a big one when the boys were little. Um, but I don't know. It'll be okay. Like it's only I I'll tell you a piece of bad advice. Like all those stupid sappy poems about like you never know when the last time you're gonna hold your baby is. Do you know those poems? I hate those poems.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. I hate those poems. So like I won't ever tell you like, you know, dirty babies don't keep or whatever, because that just makes me sad and cry. And like I have a thing where I pick the boys up all the time because like I was like, there's never going to be a last time I ever pick you up. I'm going to pick you up every day on your birthday, so there's never a last time. But just don't like worry about like the little bullshit. There's all these like little things that like aren't a big deal, that like I'm pretty good at like worrying about. I don't like worry about my kids are doing like enough sports or anything like that. I just make sure like they're happy and they get to do things they enjoy, and not like worrying about like stressing them out about like grades or like I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that like people like get concerned about and like overwhelm their kids with, and I just don't worry about that stuff. Just worry about creating healthy, happy, secure humans that want to make a positive change in the planet.
That's a really good reminder because I feel like, yeah, sometimes in the everyday you can get really stressed about the details. And sometimes looking too far into the future is scary, but there are other times where it's like, will this matter 6 months from now? Will it matter a year from now? Like, so yeah, why am I so stressed about this thing in the moment when, yeah, in the big picture, it really isn't going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and say no to more stuff. I guess that's my biggest advice. Say no to more stuff. Like don't. You probably don't need to do it.
Yeah. Unless someone's feeling really passionate about it in your house, right? If the people in your house are excited and really want to do a thing, yeah, go for it. But yeah, if it's people outside of your house that are pressuring you to do a thing and think that you should do it, yeah, it's okay to say no.
I think that's a really good reminder that if people are being judgy of you, that's their problem. And if it's that important to them that something happens in your household, they own it now. I remember when my kids were younger, we have a friend who, and I think it was very well intentioned, but she would always start cleaning when she came over. And I felt very judged by it. And I finally thought, you know what? If it bothers her, she's welcome to clean. If it bothers her and she's not willing to do something about it, she can leave. Like, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. So we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
I was thinking really hard about this morning because this is the only question that stumped me. And I think it might be winging it. Like either like I have to like make a costume out of like a random thing of supplies, or I have to make a dinner with like 1 pound of ground beef and like 2 ounces of cream cheese and like 5 noodles, like I think that's like maybe like the MacGyver category. Like you have to make something out of virtually nothing. I think that I could be good at. I think I'd win that.
That's a good one. Yeah. Or fix this gate with the materials supplied or something like that.
Like fix this gate with only the supplies you have in your like buggy or your side by side or ATV or whatever. Like you can only use the supplies in there and the tools in there.
Yeah, what you can find in the farm truck is all you can use.
Yeah, that's all you can use. Like I would be really good at that.
Arlene, I'm picturing our Barnyard Language reality show, because I feel like we would have some serious competition in a show like that. Like, I don't watch much TV, but I'd watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, throw someone so a pet, like you said, a bit of ground beef and whatever you can find in this basket of leftovers, and create a meal for 10 people.
Yeah, like 3 pounds of ground beef, an unopened jar of mustard, and like I don't know, maybe some beans or something.
Yeah, and a spice rack.
Yeah, I could make that work. I could feed people something edible.
All right, we'll go ahead and move into our cussing and discussing segment. If you're a listener and want to submit yours, you can either go to our SpeakPipe or our email, and both those links are in the show notes. Katie, what are you cussing and or discussing this week?
I'm gonna say, so the current state of the universe has me feeling a lot of big feelings. And I don't like responding to that in a really seriously negative way. A, because I'm actually a pretty big pacifist, and B, it just doesn't, meeting negativity with negativity doesn't feel good to me. So A, I've decided to be obnoxiously joyful, which is bringing me a lot more joy in life. I am combating negativity by meeting it with an equal level of positivity.
Right, so you're just a ray of sunshine.
Really fucking annoying. And instead of saying things like, I hope so-and-so dies, which I might feel, I've decided that instead of saying that I'm going to, hex people in a witchy way, I am vexing them with things like, for example, I hope one of their socks falls down. Or, like one of...
So just minor inconveniences.
Just those little things that will just ruin their positive experience of their lives in a not in any way actually dangerous or harmful way, but just, I hope they have one hangnail or one paper cut that never heals. Just that sort of and I find somehow that challenging myself to come up with increasingly creative things to wish upon people really does help with that sense of hopelessness when you've already done all the things you can actually do and now you're still just frustrated that, and in inviting other people to participate in coming up with increasingly horrifying small irritants.
Okay, so I feel like we each need to come up with a new one that Katie hasn't already suggested. The one that came up in my mind is, when you have like a really itchy tag on the back of your shirt and then you cut it off, but there's still like some itchy thread or something like that, or the shirt starts to unravel because you cut too close to the seam. That's what I hope for my enemies. That, yeah, all their clothing has really annoying tags that they can't quite get rid of.
I don't know if you guys have like goat heads or sticker burrs, that they have one like little spear of that stuck inside not only their sock but also their boot, and they can't figure out which one is which.
Oh yeah, it's just it's in the fabric or the lining somewhere. There's no way to find it, but not enough to get rid of the boot, but yeah, it's there.
You can't get it out though, ever.
One of my favorites from this weekend was that I hope that their car warning lights come on randomly.
But never when they go to the garage.
But that half of them are accurate and they never know which ones they can ignore.
Yes, that's a good one too. Yeah, and as soon as you get to your mechanic, everything's good. Yeah, no problems.
Julia, what do you have?
I guess my thing was I'm sick of people complaining about egg prices on the internet. It's gotten my goat. I'm just like, people don't know enough about egg production to understand like why it's happening. And also there's like somebody who knows probably more than I'd like to know about chickens. Like people don't understand that there's like also like a photo period of chickens. Like they need a certain amount of sunlight to produce eggs, even if they're in like a large fat commercial setting. Like they have lights in there, but still there's only like so much you can do to make a chicken lay more eggs. And also, there's things going on with avian influenza, and it's just, a slow season for chickens to lay eggs. And then people are like, I don't know, it's just driving me nuts.
Yeah, everybody's theories, right? And it's probably a conspiracy somehow.
I will say it makes me a little crazy that because my chickens have stopped laying because photo period. The eggs I bought at the Iowa Walmart the other day, unfortunately, in one of the biggest egg producing states in the country, were the same price as my boss paid for the same brand eggs at the Whole Foods in Los Angeles last week. And I don't give as much of a shit for my family because thankfully it's not a huge strain on our budget. But for a lot of families, the fact that the Walmart brand cheap white eggs, and I understand why, I absolutely do. It's not about the price of the things. That the price has gone from 69 cents a dozen to $4.69 a dozen. There are a lot of families that is not going to work for.
Wow, 69. That's what eggs used to cost. I'm sorry, Canadian here. Eggs used to be under $1. I mean, I knew people were complaining about prices, but
Yeah, at like Aldi or the gas station or something, like not consistently, but like it was not 99 cents was normal.
right. So they were probably underpriced for a very long time too, right? So then that becomes part of the problem, is that then farmers have been underpriced and undercompensated for so long that then when things actually get closer to like what they should cost, people get upset.
My complaint is entirely about the food system and not really the price of eggs at all. So it's really a totally different thing.
But eggs are such an important food. Like eggs are like such an important food, and like I'm a really big fan of eggs, especially because they're readily available in a lot of places and they're such a complete like nutrient source. The same thing with milk. Like I'm all about milk and eggs. I think like they're one of like the best easily accessible foods for people. And people don't understand that. And then I go to like our local farmers market, a couple times a week. We always have eggs in there. So like their local farmers have eggs. You just like, and to be honest, I mean, they're $5-6 and they're might be happier chickens than the Walmart chickens, but like also it's like not terribly much more, and you're also directly supporting your local economy, and you're like directly.
Julia, I will say in my defense, these are the first commercial eggs I've bought in probably at least a decade because all of our local farms are sold out, which is a good problem for them. But I was like, I feel like I need to like put a mask on or something to buy eggs because of like.
I mean, eggs from a grocery store are still coming from a farmer.
That's true.
All food's coming from farmers, whether they are domestic or imported. That's also okay. But yeah, if you can buy local, then a bigger share goes to the farmer. But yeah, it's still a farmer somewhere who's producing it.
But I also got several lines on getting some new hens in the next couple weeks. So.
There you go.
Okay, Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
So mine is not a big world issue. But when Julia was talking about looking after each other's kids, I wanted to talk about kid math versus like chicken math. How having more kids in your house when you have siblings can actually sometimes be easier, especially as they get older. Not so much when they're toddlers, because then that's just a disaster and they all fight with each other. But as our kids get older, how much easier it gets if you add a kid or two, because then the siblings don't fight as much. And all of a sudden, like the world is just peaceful. I mean, it doesn't last forever, but we had a professional development day last week for our kids' school. And so two of the boys had friends over, and it was just so wonderful. And like the younger one, who usually has to be coerced into going outside, was like, we're going to the barn. And they went, and like him and his friend went to the barn. And the older one was socializing with the rest of his family, who is sometimes a little bit more introverted. And which is fine. But, yeah, there's just something about having a little bit of extra energy in the house that actually makes things go a lot smoother. Just an observation.
No, I agree. When my boys, like that family I was talking about, that big family, when the 3 other boys come over, it's like I'm so productive because everybody's occupied. Like everybody has somebody to hang out with, and like it's just like it. And my friend, I think, feels the same way. She's like, yeah, they leave me completely alone for like 5 hours. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I feel like too, you can sometimes even like delegate a job to like a little team of kids, and they're more excited to do it than if it was just them, because they're like, I don't want to. But if you can ask someone else's kid, like, hey, could you do this thing for me? They'll be like, yeah, sure. And then they all just run off and do it.
I think too it can be a nice break for the kids. As an only child myself, like my son's little bestie is also an only child, and his family has rules and expectations that are enforced and followed and whatever. But their kid comes over here, and he and my son will like try to get the Alexa to play songs about farts for like an hour, and they're just having the best time, and his little friend feels like he's really getting away with something because probably at home somebody would stop him. Where here it's like a fun treat because I'm like, of course you can have popsicles for lunch.
Yeah.
Of course you can listen to songs about farts. Like,
Yeah, go ahead. It's a play date. Do what you want. I can put my earplugs in.
yeah, And then my kids are way less trouble because they're here like one-upping each other with cool things they can show their friend instead of bothering me.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Julia, for joining us today. If people want to find out more about you and your farm and your feed store, where can they find you online?
You can find our farm on Instagram and Facebook at the Humble Hive Homestead or thehumblehivehomestead.com. Our feed store is called Wellston Feed and Seed. You can find us on Instagram, Wellston Feed and Seed, and Facebook, and then wellstonfeed.com is our website. And you can find my email and how to get in touch with me if you have any questions or hopefully not complain.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julia.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.